graduate of Brother Martin and Southern Miss, hosts the Sports Hangover on ESPN 100.3 FM weekdays, serves as the sideline reporter for Tulane football radio broadcasts, and handles play-by-play for Tulane women's basketball. The Tulane football team is at East Carolina in American Conference play at 6 p.m. this Saturday evening. Please give a warm Quarterback Club welcome to Gus Kattengell. Gus?
Thank you, Kenny. Thank you for having me here, and wish we could be talking about, obviously, better circumstances with the Tulane football team. Loses a 4 straight, and you hate to sort of go back to the FIU game, but lots of momentum, lots of excitement in Uptown New Orleans up until that point. You had 3 wins, had a bunch of games to go. You only needed 3 more to go bowling, which is obviously the goal right now for that program, to start turning the corner. And you go up there and you lose 23-10 in a game that was difficult to kind of explain, other than didn't show up. I mean, you get those kind of phrases and you sort of look at the stats, and it was a game where you felt maybe they got out-coached a bit, they got out-efforted and all those different things, and next thing you know, you now have lost 4 straight. Because after that, the difficult part of the schedule was starting to come up with conference opponents, in which, while you do hear a lot from Tulane trying to push this P6 and the Power 6 conference, got a lot of teams that are ranked in there, the upper 20s, high teens. More importantly, they have high-powered offenses, and with Tulane, have you seen this year, you have an offense that's been inconsistent, you have an offense that had a quarterback and still does, and is trying to compete against offenses that put up high volume of points. So you kind of been behind the 8 ball, especially when you took on 2 high-powered offenses in Memphis and in South Florida, and they just couldn't play catch up. Now, they did manage to catch up a little bit, make some games out of it, but at the end, it's trying to put it all together. So you've had injuries, but more importantly, I think for a fan base that's been trying to look for a winner and consistency, it just hasn't been there. So that's where they are now. Can they still get to 6 wins? Yes, but now you have to win out. And you have to win at ECU, historically a tough place to play. They got a great fan base. Remember the first time I was there, the thing that stood out to me, they take the whole pirate thing and really make it an issue. They raise a quarter flag, which is a red flag that says no quarter, in other words, no prisoners. In the 4th quarter, the entire fan base gets behind it, and they start playing pirate music and everything. And it's a tough place to play. And part of the reason Tulane's been struggling on defense the last couple of weeks, miscommunication in the back end, giving up some big plays. East Carolina tossed the football 71 times last week, so they're going to be challenged. Now, granted, ECU's been trailing in a lot of those games, but they're going to throw. Just spoke to Coach Fritz after practice today. He said they're definitely an RPO offense, run-pass option, but they take the P part of that a lot, so they will be throwing the football a lot. I think what will be interesting is to see how this team sort of finishes from it. You have a 4-game losing streak. It's rough. You already have the fan base kind of going, here we go again, same old Tulane. Literally, Coach just told me that that's what he's trying to fight against. And he's fighting against trying to stay positive and trying to get things motivated and still going. The next 3 games, I mean, they're favored by 5.5 this weekend. How do you finish? And I think finishing strong is going to determine how you go into that recruiting phase and how you go into next season. Houston's always a tough team. You're going to have them at home. They'll be the last home game, and then you wrap up at SMU. And the last time Tulane was there was Curtis Johnson's final game. It was a bad loss. It was cold. They had about 20 people in the stands, and Tulane didn't perform very well, and they made a coaching change after that. So one of my storylines over the next 3 weeks will be, how do they perform? Things are not going well, but you still can get to 6 wins. Got to win out, and we'll see where it's at. So with that, that's where Tulane football sort of is. Any questions?
Yeah, Gus, like you said, recruiting. Where does Tulane stand? And maybe Kenny Trahan may be able to answer this one. With Lindsay Scott, the kid who came out of Zachary, they originally signed with LSU. He's now in a junior college. He can move right in, and that's the same kind of offense.
Right.
He's made to like a hand in glove for. And what about, like Coach Salters here, the Broomfield from his big running back, and what about the running back from De La Salle?
I know specifically with some of the players, we'll see where that goes. I don't know specifically where that stands, if they're in the same, wanting to talk to him and go with that. The Lindsay Scott thing that's interesting is this. I know they got a really good freshman that they like at quarterback. Now, is that something you go in and bring in? Banks still can come back next year. I literally just talked to Coach specifically about where he needs to go in recruiting next year. Because from what I've seen from the sidelines, to me, it doesn't matter who you got quarterbacking there. A Baker Mayfield could be back there. And I'm not trying to be ugly, but at Hut, you're getting hit in the backfield. They desperately need to get better on the offensive line. On the defensive line, I mean, granted, he's in the NFL, Tanzel Smart, but I think that was probably one of the bigger losses this past year. On the back end, this past game was the first game that they stopped getting turnovers. They had 9 straight turnovers in the game, and they were actually, I want to say, Kenny, what, number 5 or number 40 in the top 5 in the NCAA in turning the ball over. They only have 6 all year, so they're not giving the ball away. They're taking it away for 9 straight games till previously this past week. And it's been primarily either Nickerson or Donnie Lewis that's gotten the interceptions. But the pass rush, Adi Aruna, you know, media days for American Conference Media Days wanted to be the sack leader of the conference, and that D-line just hasn't gotten the pressure or the stops that you've seen in years past. So to me, just from being on the sidelines during these games, they desperately need to get bigger, and not even bigger, just better on the offensive and defensive line. As a matter of fact, Coach just asked me, he's like, didn't you notice we're not as big as Cincinnati on that offensive line? So skilled players are obviously going to be big in that running game and that running attack, but one of the things that's hurt Tulane offensively this year is Jonathan Banks being banged up. They haven't really called a lot of triple options, and these are their best options, their best back. You saw a 50-something yard touchdown last week with him. If he's healthy, he's capable of doing that, but they're trying to protect him because he's not. So when you have all that, it makes it a little bit harder to that. You're seeing the passing game step up a little bit, but if there's running backs they can go get to help out, there's no doubt next year, you know, with Dontrell Hilliard, you know, not going to be here and graduating, running backs definitely an area, but to me, man, line, offensive line, D-line's got to be the #1 priority in recruiting.
Ed. Hold on, Ed. We'll come.
Gus, are you good maybe kicking from 36 yards and in?
I'm as tall as most kickers. Actually, no. Zach Block's a lot taller than me. No, but
How do you explain what continues
Yeah.
to be an unbelievable nemesis for this program?
I can just tell you, Ed, it's mind-boggling, it's puzzling, and I want to say 6 kickers or so. They go through them, and I talked to Ty Graffanini about this, the voice of the Wave, and he watches all the different practices. They try them all out. I mean, it's the guy that's going to start this week and kick, he gets a few, and then the other guy gets a few, and the other guy gets a few, and a lot of times they've gone with whoever's been the hottest in that. Not just Coach Fritz, but Coach Curtis, same thing. I'm at a loss. I can't understand why. I've gotten to the point where going to quad and grab some kids that play soccer, see if they can kick the ball. It's just, it's nuts because, Ed, if he makes that field goal, you're talking about a kicker that would have made 5 field goals in that game. I mean, he made 4. The one that happened to be the game winner was helicoptered to the left and it had no chance. Or as Todd called it, the no hope field goal. I mean, it's difficult to look at it, but, and again, it's what Coach Fritz is trying to erase and change, but it's Tulane, isn't it, right? You have a 4th and short, and for some reason the offense goes in there and they're trying to either draw the other team off sides. Coach Fritz says if they like the look, they may go for it. Why? Just kick the field goal and win the game. And it's just, they made it harder than it needed to be. And I think that's the thing that's the overwhelming issue with this program. You're making it harder than it needs to be. You haven't had success running up the middle. They've had success against Cincinnati on the edges. On 3rd and short, they go up the middle. It's a loss. Now the clock's ticking. Now you're trying to draw them off. Just kick the field goal and win the game. Because while you're doing that, the kicker doesn't know if he's coming in, if he's going out. So it just makes it harder. And again, when you're not a winning program, every little bit becomes a straw that breaks your back.
And one other thing, and I say this only halfly in jest, can you update us on Todd's condition? First the Dodgers, and now Saturday. How's he doing?
The Dodgers thing is fine simply because he does believe the better team did win, and he got to go to Houston on Saturday. He landed after the Memphis game, drove up from 6 a.m. on, and watched the game in Houston on Saturday, so he watched the Dodger win in the World Series, so he's fine with it. And I'd tell you the truth, if he was heartbroken and everything, he was happy with it. As far as the game on Saturday, it's kind of the sense and feeling that you were saying. It's just how many more ways and how many more times does it have to happen? And like I said, I spoke with Coach for about 25 minutes before I did my interview that I'm going to play on the show today at 1:30. It's frustrating because it's things that you know you need to improve on, and it's things, again, the kid makes 4 field goals. Perfect. Hold could have been maybe a little better, Coach says, but at the end of the day, it's teams that win, teams that go bowling, teams that get fans in the stands have to make those plays. And until that happens, you know.
You alluded earlier to disappointment this year's team. Willie Fritz, he comes with a good resume and so forth. Of course, we've heard that before. How long is his leash? Are there rumblings that, hey, next year if something doesn't appreciably happen on the field, we have some issues? Is it like that? Or
I think one of the things that's interesting, not only in reference to Tulane, and I was referencing a lot on the show, Kenny, about the SEC, right? I mean, how many coaches might not be back in the SEC this year? You already had one in Florida. I think one of the things that you have to understand as well, and coaches do, is you have to be allowed to build. Now, how long is that build? Is it 3 years? Is it 4 years? Is it 5? If I come in and get a recruiting class, remember he got in December, so he was late. Not an excuse, it's just you're late in the game when you're doing that. So he's had one real good recruiting class as of yet, and he just told me, he's like, it wasn't good enough. That's obvious. So you have to recruit well. It just comes down to that. Talking to the high school coaches, it's going out and getting players and players that can help you immediately and impact. So when it comes to a leash, the first thing you need to ask either a fan base or administrators is, okay, well then how long does it take to build a program to sort of turn around? We're talking about kickers not being able to make the plays. You're losing some players that went into the NFL, and in Tulane, it's not like most schools where you have, first and second string guys. They come up and those are Sunday players. You might have one, you might have 2. So when Tulane gets a player that is a 5th rounder or something of that nature in the NFL, that's an impact player for Tulane. So you have to replace that, and other guys need to step up. Also, you're changing systems here. You're going from a pro-style pass type, with Curtis Johnson trying to mimic the Saints a bit, to now you're doing something completely different. So those offensive linemen that have been recruiting, that are juniors and seniors, that have been the guys that have weightlifted for 4 years, maybe that's not the guys that you need for your system. So I think you feel the heat. I mean, he understands that, obviously. He just flat out told me, 25 minutes ago, he's never lost this much in his career. It's tough. So you have a lot of different factors in it, but at the end of the day, it's a, win-loss career. And I think after 3 to 4 years is a good evaluation, especially when you have to come in and rebuild. I mean, that's just where it is. And, that's the difficult aspect of it. You've got to get 2-3 classes in before I can objectively say a coach is doing the right job or not. Because that freshman's got to be to a junior. Then there's no excuse, right? I mean, if he's 3 years in the program still making the wrong pitch and the wrong mistake or the wrong reads, then it is coaching or that class and those, kids haven't done it. And it has to be more than one, right? I mean, not every kid hits and not every kid understands it. It might not be the right fit. That's why some transfer. That's why some do those things. So I think 3 to 4 years is probably a normal, especially Tulane. You got to reload and get better.
Anyone else?
He's coming.
Coming into the year, Gus, our DBs were supposed to be the strong point of our defense. Over the games you've seen, I mean, I'm just a fan, but you're on the sidelines. What do you hear? What do they say? Are they just not communicating, or is somebody having a brain fade when the ball is
You talk about the big plays that have happened recently. I spoke to Roger Teamer for our pregame show on Sunday specifically about that, and he says it's frustrating. You look at the game film, and it's things that they haven't done, and it's communication. It's really no other reason than that. I just told you that in those 9 straight games that they got turnovers, it's primarily been an interception by the corners. The safety play has to get better. Now, Roger Teamer was injured in some of those games, and you saw teams attack that safety position, and it hurt. When it comes to the communication process, I'll just tell you what he told us for the pregame show. That on one particular play last week, Cincinnati hits on the far sideline or near sideline by the press box side, a deep pass play of 30-plus yards. There were 3 blue jerseys around him. No one converted. The corner thought the safety was going to get it. The safety thought the corner was going to get it. And then you have another one running alongside of him. And Teamer said he's accustomed to getting his side, and he gives out the call and what he needs to be on his side. He says, all I need to do is just say it for the other side as well. Take that extra effort, take that extra step and do it. I just didn't do it. It's on my bed. So, again, it's one of those things. Do they have the talent? Do they have the players to do it? And is it coaching? They know what to do. It's just you have to do it. I mean, all he had to do, as he told me today, is make the call and tell the other safety, this is the call, not assume that he got the call and that play is defended. Instead, it goes for 30 yards and he leaves for a touchdown. Good. Thank you.